All right, guys, welcome to podcast number dose. Actually, we're dressed differently, but this is the same day as our first podcast. Well, just because it's kind of funny. But, we took a look at the first video and we need a little bit of sprucing up. You look beautiful all the time, though, my dear. Anyways, thanks for joining us. And if you do like our podcast, which is also in a video format on YouTube, so please, whatever you can do, share this podcast, like, comment, subscribe, download, do whatever. Let's just get this out so a lot of parents could watch this and maybe get a little bit of help or a little bit of advice or maybe just some respite from all the stress of being parents.
Or give us some feedback. Tell us what you think.
Oh, yeah.
Give us your opinion about the topic. And if you agree, disagree, what works for you, what doesn't work for you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so totally. We're noobs as well, but we're noobs that are recording stuff so that we could get the word out to help other noobs. So we could at least, because we're not like total noobs anymore. I mean, we have like 9 months experience with a baby. We're experts, so expert noobs, but whatever we can do to help, because it was really hard, as discussed in our first video with our little intro. So enough about us today. Let's actually talk about a topic that is pretty fresh, I guess, in both of our lives, especially for her. What we're going to talk about today is the end of breastfeeding. I titled this podcast, Breastfeeding, the End of an Era. But, it'd be nice to hear Grace's take on the whole breastfeeding debacle and everything that we went through regarding it. So, what's going on with this breastfeeding stuff?
So it's an end of an era, not by choice, really. It's actually kind of a funny story.
Are you going to tell their story?
I think it's actually a really funny story.
I was trying to be romantic.
So, Julian wanted to try to take me away from stress at work and having to have been traveling for work a lot. So he planned this nice picnic at Will Rogers State Park.
That's in the Pacific Palisades.
In California. And it's really cute. It's this really nice patch of grass. And there's all these families there. And in the back, there's a bunch of horses and people training for equestrian and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. It was great. He got wine and made some wine and cheese and all this stuff. It was really great. And then the next day, I felt like there was something on my neck and I kind of dismissed it. And then 3 days later, it turned into a rash. Went to urgent care. They said it was a tick bite. So anyway, that means I had to get on antibiotics because nobody wants to get a tick bite and get Lyme disease. Heaven forbid.
No Lyme disease, please.
So, when you have antibiotics for Lyme disease, it's actually Doxy, and you're not allowed to breastfeed your baby when you're on Doxy. So
Doxy is an antibiotic, right?
Yeah. So anyway, that's the reason for the end of an era. But to be fair, I was already not producing that much anyway. And in general, I really had low production from the very beginning, from the get-go.
So I think what we should do is we should talk about the beginning when he was first born. So real quick, interject. What I found really crazy was we learned this before we actually had the baby, but the lady at the nursing school that we went to, or the pre-birth school that we went to, she said that once the baby comes out, literally right when it comes out, it's going to go searching for the boob and start suckling. And I'm like, whatever, how's it going to know that, right? First thing it did was look for her nipple, and it was weird. And it was
By the way, I hate that word.
The nipple. Anyways, yeah, it was the nipple was like a beacon, and it was beep, 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 looking for it. And anyways, I thought that was really cool. So I was like, okay, wow, well, naturally, it's great because it's mother's milk. It has a lot of antibodies and stuff like that, and it's free. So I was like, yes, like all these people that spend money on formula. So anyways, take over. What happened in the beginning?
So anyway, like I felt blessed because all of my friends before me who had babies had all talked about how breastfeeding was so difficult. It was so painful. And I was, lucky because that very first time he latched and there was no problem. And the time after that he latched and there was no problem. And that second day, the nurse said, "Oh, you're producing colostrum. That's great. Keep at it." So that's that like really nutritious first couple of drops that your baby gets. So anyway, I was thinking, amazing. I got it made. It doesn't hurt. He knows what he's doing. We're golden. So basically, fast forward the next couple of weeks, he had dropped a lot of weight. And I was trying to follow through with breastfeeding and make sure that I, got him what he needed. And we were really confused because the baby was not being super fussy. And really, he was just using what little energy he had to maintain and stay alive. So I finally broke down and decided to feed the baby formula after my mom.
No, but wait.
Hold on. After my mom, who was staying with us to try to help out, had a hissy fit about me starving my baby.
No, okay, no. Before that, though, I mean, so there was this vicious cycle where because he wasn't eating and he wasn't, he was sleeping too much.
But
he got jaundice.
Oh, right. So that's true. So right when we were in the hospital, they said he had jaundice, but it wasn't to the levels that were as bad or bad enough to where he had to stay in the hospital. So we got to bring him home and we had to use a billy blanket, and the billy blanket's basically an at-home way to shine light on the baby so that he can get rid of the jaundice. But there's a lot of side effects when you're shining this light on the baby 24 hours a day. He gets dehydrated, and when he gets dehydrated, he has no energy. When he has no energy, he doesn't have energy to suck. And so it's a vicious cycle of, the baby not being able to have enough energy to eat, not enough energy to eat, then he's not gaining weight. Not gaining weight means, he's crying because he's hungry, and it wasn't working.
Okay, wait, before we move on, you want to explain what jaundice is or what the symptoms of jaundice was so parents would know?
I think I know where this is going, but
what?
Basically your baby is really yellow, and lately my husband keeps telling me I have jaundice because I'm pale.
Okay, yeah, because she doesn't like going out in the sun like a typical Asian lady. Okay, I'm just kidding. Anyways, okay, so now I just wanted
to... But it's elevated levels of bilirubin, so your baby looks really yellow.
Yeah, and the eyeball...
Or if you like roids.
Yeah. The eyes, the white of the eyes are actually yellow too. It looks really freaky.
And it's really, for those of you who do have babies that have jaundice, it is a little traumatizing until they do get over it, because they take the blood from your baby's foot and
they have to test.
They squeeze it out, and so the baby's like crying bloody murder for a pretty long time, because they have to squeeze a lot of blood into this tiny little vial. So they're like squeezing his foot.
What is the vial for?
It's enough blood so that they can test the bilirubin levels again.
And so
we were going to the doctor every day for the first, I want to say 2 weeks that he was born, and it just got exhausting. I mean, it's already exhausting enough to have a newborn baby, but having to bring the baby to the doctor every day and make sure he doesn't get sick and all that stuff, that was just exhausting.
Yeah, and also just to note, so what we had to do is that light that's shined on the baby, it's like a bluish light, and I guess it stimulates, the bilirubin in his blood, so that helps get rid of the jaundice. And
oh yeah, so pooping and peeing is what gets rid of the jaundice
for the baby.
In addition to the bilirubin blanket.
Yeah.
And so
but he wasn't eating enough, so
exactly.
he wasn't pooping and peeing, so the jaundice was there for a little bit longer. And
which is dangerous, because actually if your baby doesn't get rid of the bilirubin, it can actually impact the brain.
So point is, if your baby is yellow, give him some formula. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah, and honestly, I think one of the things that people don't talk about enough, and I think had I known about it and had I heard, and I'm trust me, I did a lot of Google searches, and
she's a
my
Google
husband
searcher.
complains about that. But if I had known that it's fairly common that babies drink formula just to get through the first couple of days, for example, when moms can't produce milk right away because maybe the baby was born early or things like that, the baby will still go back to breast milk. I mean, it's not like they won't be able to go back on to the boob. So, I mean, I think for any parents who are listening and are having a hard time trying to decide, I mean, the first and most important thing is your baby's health. So looking back, I think had I known that, I probably wouldn't have fought so hard to breastfeed the baby.
Yeah, I remember that whole debacle of you not wanting, because look, breastfeeding is great for the baby. What does it come with? It, like I said, it comes with antibiotics, and they're saying the longer the kid is breastfed, the more healthier he'll be and stuff like that.
And the part that dads don't understand is that bond, right? I know it's kind of something that moms always talk about, but what really hit home was we had this doctor who we went to, and she was all about trying it and making it work. But then towards the end, she basically told me, it's not working. Don't do it anymore. Just feed the bottle and give it up. And then that's when I basically just broke down and was really upset.
But you were still supplementing at that point, though. You were still supplementing.
Right, but I was supplementing, but she basically told me to not even don't just supplement, like just stop doing boob. He doesn't have the energy, and don't waste energy having him try to breastfeed. Give him formula. And so for me, that was just devastating, because I really enjoyed that bond. I know it's just something cute, like you watch your baby feed. It's just something that I think moms like. And so anyway, for like a week, I gave it up, but I couldn't deal with it. I was like really unhappy that I was not doing it for this doctor who told me I shouldn't do it. So I went back. And I went back to breastfeeding. I tried to increase my production, and it works, ladies. You can make more milk once your baby gets stronger after he has the formula and can start feeding. They suck harder, and your body learns to produce more milk. And I went from producing 1 ounce during a session to 4 ounces. Now, that's still not as much as the ladies that are doing really well and overproducing, but for me, that was like a huge win and success story.
Cool. So now, in retrospect, the whole breastfeeding, with the pumps and everything, why don't you describe a little bit what was your schedule like in terms of pumping? I know, and also, where can these ladies get breast pumps for free or cheap? I remember you. Right.
So originally I was going to buy my pump on Groupon, because I saw like a really great deal. And one of my friends.
We're not sponsored by Groupon, by the way. So if this is Groupon and you're listening to us, give us advertising.
But my friend basically mentioned, hey, reach out to your insurance. They'll give you typically, or at least reimburse you for certain pumps. So basically reach out to your insurance providers, because they'll have packages of things that they do give new moms.
And if you don't have insurance, would you suggest people buying used, or?
So you really don't want to buy a used breast pump unless it's a closed system. Closed system basically means the flow of milk can't go back into the tubes, because if you buy an open system that's been used, there's potential bacteria in there. So you want to go with the closed system so that it's not an issue. So for me, I personally use Spectra. It's a hospital grade pump, and I really liked it. But I think everybody has their own preferences. So go do your research, see what you think works for you. For me, I wanted something that was minimal pain and hospital grade.
Cool. So last question was touching on what was your schedule like? Yeah.
So I think what people really don't understand is how difficult it is for the first couple of weeks, because they just don't have any concept as a new mom of what really they're up against. So it's funny because my cousin was about to have a baby, and I had just gone through the whole thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I could do it again, I'd get a night nurse if I had the money, or I would, you know,
sell your kidney,
do something
boys.
different, you know, like figure out a way to, you know, have one parent do the night shift and one parent do the day shift or something, because it wasn't working, especially for ladies who have low supply. So basically the way it works is, when you have low supply anyway, is the baby wakes up, you check them, change their diaper, feed them, and
feed them your boob, you mean?
Yeah, so I was breastfeeding, and I was breastfeeding a very slow eating baby. And so it could take him up to an hour to feed. And after he's fed for an hour, then you burp him for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then you put him to bed for another 10, 15 minutes, depending on how long it takes you to put your baby to bed. So by then it's what, an hour, 15 minutes, hour, 20 minutes. So you put them to bed, and if you're smart, you have your husband put them to bed and burp them and change them.
So you can get a little bit of rest.
Well, that's the part that I think ladies who have low supply unfortunately have it hard, because after the baby goes to bed, you have to go and pump for another 15, 20 minutes to try to increase your production so that your breasts think that you need more milk. So after you pump for 15 minutes, you don't want your pump parts to start to get bacteria. So if it's been a full day, you need to wash them so that the next pumping session you have clean pump parts, or put them in the refrigerator.
So you're segueing into from breastfeeding to pumping.
No, I'm not actually. Okay. It's all part of the same time frame, because if you have low supply, listen to the dad who doesn't know what happened because he was sleeping, and I was taking. For those of you who hadn't listened to the first session of the podcast, I took the brunt of the work because he was going through what I consider postpartum depression. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is evidence that men go through postpartum depression as well. But anyway, I mean, I think it's difficult for ladies who have low supply because they're trying to increase their production, and the only way to increase your production is to keep pumping. So for those of you who can breastfeed the whole time, props to you. And I wish I had it that easy to where I could just whip it out and then go back to bed.
Whip it out.
And then for the formula feeding ladies, that's amazing, because you have an extra partner to help you if they don't have postpartum depression.
Meaning, so if you're doing formula and breastfeeding.
No, if you're just doing formula, you can take turns with your significant other or whoever, so that you're not the one doing the duty 24/7. Yeah. But if you're a low supply mom, you're pretty much pumping every 2 to 3 hours, whether your baby's sleeping more than that or not, because you really want to try to increase your production. And unfortunately, I don't have any other miracle solution. You just have to drink a lot of water and pump a lot. And one of my other good friends had introduced power pumping to me. So basically, pumping frequently within an hour, and there's different intervals, so I won't suggest the different intervals. You can look it up online, but you would just basically pump every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes within the hour to try to tell your body to produce more milk. So, I mean, this is kind of a short discussion about, pumping and breastfeeding, but there's definitely a lot of work that goes into it. You ladies are doing amazing, and I think the one thing to remember is you can only do the best that you can do, and the most important thing is to have your baby be well fed. And formula is not bad. I mean, there was a time when we were all raised on formula and not breastfed. So
sponsored by Infamil.
I mean, seriously, like organic formula, non-organic formula, ready to feed formula, whatever it is, whatever makes your baby sleep well, happy is all that matters.
Maybe we'll talk about formula in another podcast, because there's some issues here and there with different brands and everything, but that's another topic to be discussed. So any last final words, or was that your last final word?
I mean, I think I'd love to hear people's feedback about breastfeeding. For me, it was pretty tough because I felt like it was a struggle. If you're new to breastfeeding, buy a lot of pump parts if you can afford it. It just saves you time and effort. Make your husbands clean the pump parts. Don't do all the work yourselves because you're already doing a lot of the work, and it helps to have somebody help you in a really difficult time.
Cool. Well, as much as I would hate to say this, I'm tired of talking about boobs. So anyways, real quick on a side note, I thought of a title for our blog now. So I think I'll call it The Cool Mother Father Blog Presents The Parents Rule Podcast. Anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. Please subscribe, like, comment, give us your feedback. Let us know what we're saying wrong, whatever. Spread the word. We'd love to just get our word across to everyone and just have a community that promotes, discussion about
sharing information. I mean, everybody could use a different perspective, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, we are new parents still. We're growing, we're evolving. We want to take you guys along on this journey for us. So yeah, thanks again, and thank you for listening to the Parents Rule Podcast, brought to you by the Cool Mother Father Blog. Bye, my name is Julian, and I'm signing off.
See you later.